and the economy afloat. The efforts included increased unemployment benefits, loans to small businesses, and of course, cash directly to people's bank accounts. But how do American efforts stack up versus other countries? Are other governments giving their citizens more support?
They saw median incomes rise in April and May in response to the legislation as folks got that stimulus payment and got the increased unemployment insurance benefits into their savings. And of course, savings went up. So we actually saw an increase in income, which is sort of counterintuitive when you think about where the direction it should be going.
$700 in the fourth stimulus checks for everybody. There is some good news about the fourth stimulus payments that I want you to know. New payments have been approved and hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people can expect to receive more money this year. Now the deadline has passed for people in South Carolina to file state individual income tax returns for the year. And that means rebates totaling up to $700 are actually beginning to go out and sent at the end of the year. The South Carolina Department of Revenue Director has actually told reporters that we're on schedule to issue rebates by the end of the year. You must have filed your 2021 individual income tax return by October to be eligible for this money. It's free money too. To qualify for the rebate, applicants had to file their tax return by the deadline and have a tax liability for the rest of the year. So the maximum payment you can receive is actually pretty big. It's $700. And according to the state, when you're referring to this year's rebate, you're considered as having tax liability if you owe state individual income tax for the year 2021. The amount of your tax liability is determined by the amount of individual income that you owe, minus any credits. And everybody, the state lawmakers have approved the distribution of the tax rebates during a session in June, including it in a $13 billion budget bill. The rebates are projected to cost roughly $1 billion. And Joe Biden even said that new record on jobs with 10.3 million gained during his tenure is very good for the elections. Now, economic anxieties have compounded as the Fed has repeatedly hiked its benchmark interest rates again, everybody. That's due to lower inflation, everybody, and to possibly raise unemployment. However, mortgage costs have just soared upwards. Biden is asking voters again to look beyond this and to look beyond current financial plan and say that what matters is the job gains that he believes his policies are creating is good. Now, the government actually reported this past Friday that employers added 260,000 jobs in October as the unemployment rate just bumped up again to 3.7. Roughly 740,000 manufacturing jobs have been added since the start of Biden's.
Thank you, Pat, for that introduction. And pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. It was just back in January when we were together at the White House, Senator Brown and Senator Portman announcing this historic investment. In March, I shared the story in my State of the Union address. The story of the Field of Dreams in the middle of Ohio, where America's future will be built. In August, we were back at the White House as I signed the CHIPS and Science Act, one of the most significant science and technology investments in our history. And now, in September, Gov, we're here breaking ground, and thanks for the passport to get to the state, Gov. Appreciate it. All in 9 months in America. I want to thank Sherrod Brown for his relentless work, especially making sure that labor is in on this deal. And Pat just mentioned what Sherrod makes clear. It's time to bury the label Rust Belt.
The amount of the credit also varies by state. Vermont, for example, offers a monthly credit of $1,000 per child. That's under the age of 5, with a family income below $125,000 a year. In contrast, New Mexico offers credits worth of $175 to $175 per child. Some states offer credits linked to the federal child tax credit. For instance, in New York, the state credit is either 33% of the federal tax credit or $100 per qualifying child, whichever is greater. In Colorado, the state credit is 5% to 30% of the federal credit for each qualifying child. Students will start heading back to school in a matter of weeks, but fewer parents say they can afford back-to-school shopping this year because of rising inflation. According to a recent survey, only 36% of the 2,100 U.S. parents surveyed said they can afford their kids going back to school shopping. That number was down from 52% of the previous year. The survey also found that over 37% of parents are stressed about back-to-school shopping, up from 32% of the year before. Last year, the USA Today noted that the family benefited from stimulus checks and advanced child tax credit payments. the Consumer Price Index for urban consumers, increased 1.3% in June on a seasonally adjusted basis. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, over the past 12 months, the All Items Index increased 9.1%, the fastest increase in decades. Analysts have reported that since early May, the number of back-to-school shoppers planning to spend more than $500 in supplies has increased to 25%. A poll revealed also that 68% of the 1,200 parents surveyed said they're spending more because prices are higher. The average amount spent per child is 8%. There's a huge update on the fourth stimulus check. As inflation continues to affect millions of Americans, lawmakers are teaming together to propose brand new legislation. A new crisis relief package may include fourth stimulus payments for everybody. It comes no surprise, though, everybody, that some residents are struggling to pay for common necessities. According to Newsweek, Delaware will continue to be sending out $300 relief rebates to many residents. This is a one-time direct payment to help people face the higher prices at the pump. The state, which has already sent out its first round of checks, said there may be as many as 150,000 eligible residents still waiting for their money. The Delaware Finance Secretary also told reporters that we estimate that the maximum amount left might be 150,000. We are working with numerous other state agencies to identify other people in the state. The Department of Finance began sending out checks in the first batch to those who already filed their 2020 Delaware resident personal income taxes by the due date. Rebates will continue to be sent out to residents who filed their 2021 tax returns in the coming months. The department is also developing how to identify qualifying adult residents who did not file a 2020 Delaware tax return and may have been exempt due to their income level, pension, or Social Security. Georgia has sent out either $250 checks or $500 checks to those who filed their taxes in 2020 and 2021 to help offset inflation. Those who filed their taxes as an individual versus jointly will receive a smaller amount. Those who filed their returns by April 18th can also expect to see the payment reflected into their amounts early this month if they have not already received it. The governor is also considering proposals for another round of rebates for Georgia state taxpayers. The governor is looking for ways to include a homeowner property tax rebate. Both rebates will be funded by the large budget surplus, the same surplus being used to fund the gas tax suspension. Initial filings for unemployment insurance fell to the lowest level since late June last week, a sign that the labor market is resilient amid slowing economies. The Labor Department reported today that claims totaled a seasonally adjusted 232,000 for the week ending August 27th. It's a decline of 500,000 from the previous period and the lowest since June 25th. Continuing claims to increase to 1.44 million, amid worries that the U.S. is teetering on a recession. The job market has provided a bulwark indicating that hiring demand is strong and consumer spending has held up despite soaring inflation. Early this week, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that job openings rose past 11.2 million. Federal officials have been trying to bridge the gaps between and slow down inflation through a series of aggressive interest rate hikes. Despite those moves, inflation remained near its highest level in 40 years. Steve Hanke, a professor of applied economics at Johns Hopkins University, said this week that he believes the U.S. is heading for a whopper of a recession next year. During an interview with CNBC,